dum dum. Dum da dum 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 da dum dum. Dum da dum dum Dana.
Okay, if Attorney General Dana Nessel had simply tapped the shoulder of the person at the next pillow over, the current state of Michigan politics might be very different. We might have a different governor, a competent governor. We may have had functioning schools, affordable energy, or a growing economy, but we don't. Had Nessel done her job, I wouldn't have had an ex-con dressed like a carnie standing in the lobby of the Macomb County Courthouse, sticking his middle finger in my nose, his lawyer warning him not to do something stupid. Roll it.
Let me get your autograph, bro. Signature.
There's my signature.
Wait a minute. Is this guy giving me the finger, or you the finger, or the chief of police the finger? You remember Detroit Chief of Police James Craig's disastrous debut for governor 3 years ago? I mean, like the chief of police getting run off the island by BLM? Well, the chief's campaign actually got worse, you see, when One Finger Freddy over here was hired by the chief of police and a handful of other candidates to collect signatures for them to get on the ballot. But Freddy and his guys just made the signatures up, forged them, fakes, allegedly.
I think that just Googling some of these individuals, you would have seen things pop up from other states.
And you might remember Attorney General Dana Nessel's smug lecture to the public when she announced charges against One Finger Freddy almost 2 years ago.
As a candidate, as a consultant, or a proponent of a ballot proposal, you must take the necessary time and effort to do your due diligence and research these firms.
Freddie, whose real name is Sean Wilmoth, is an ex-con from Macomb who got caught pulling the same scam 15 years ago.
Through court records, we were able to confirm in 2011, Sean Wilmoth broke the law gathering voter signatures in Virginia and pled guilty to election fraud.
But it's bungling Dana Nessel who makes this thing so Michigan. Nessel didn't have to Google Freddie's name. All she had to do was tap the shoulder on the next pillow over. It turns out that a gay rights campaign had hired Freddie and his company back in 2020 and paid him $1 million to gather signatures. But the gay rights initiative never made the ballot because nearly 200,000 of those signatures were found to be bogus. And who was the co-chairwoman of the gay rights campaign? Nessel's wife, on the next pillow over.
A proponent of a ballot proposal.
I know.
Please leave.
What about the gays? You screwed that one up too.
So why didn't Nessel charge Freddie back then? It could have saved the Chiefs campaign and changed Michigan political history.
If you hadn't screwed these signatures up, we might not have Gretchen Whitmer. You want to apologize to the people of Michigan for that one? Let me get your autograph, bro. Signature.
There's my signature.
Can you sign it, Dana Nessel? Do you regret what you did here? The chief could have won. He was ahead in the polls. You know that. Come on, you just sign it, Dana Nessel. Can I get your autograph, Sean? Yeah, I'll do it myself.
So, why did Nessel not tag One Finger Freddy back then? Was it family embarrassment? Was it professional incompetence? Hit me.
Dum da dum dum. Dum da dum 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 da dum dum. Dum da dum dum Dana.
This guy is a walking crime wave, allegedly. He gets paid untold thousands of dollars for bogus signatures, allegedly. He does it over and over again. You think Nessel would have dropped the anvil on this guy, but she didn't, and he blows everything up. What a boob.
Dum da dum dum. Dum da dum 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 da dum dum. Dum da dum dum Dana.
Now, as for One Finger Freddy, His pretrial hearing was inexplicably delayed yet again. We're 2 years into this thing. His next appearance is scheduled for March 10th. I recommend a clean shirt and a manicure.
Live from downtown Detroit, it's the No Bullshit News Hour with my main man, Charlie LeDuff and Karen Dumas.
It's just it, breaking news. No more bullshit. No more bullshit.
Mark, why don't I do a couple spots while you get up and
fix your screen?
fix the screen? There you go. We'll fix that in post.
My big footsteps might make the camera shake.
There you go. All right. Politicians lie to you. The media lies to you. How do you know if your investment statements are lying to you? I'm getting to Luke Nowacki here. You know what I mean? You know how it goes. Remember, you're not managing your wealth. That's some unseen guy working for a big bank, working an algorithm, jockeying it, making decisions, not what's best for you, but what's best for his bonus at the end of the year. Gambling with your hard-earned dollars. You should know your money, man. That's why I work with financial specialist Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. This is where y'all get your pen. He'll tailor a financial plan specifically for you. Oh my God, you see what's going on with the bond market. The Fed is a mess and Wall Street is fixing the yield. Meaning, it's a mess. How do you know? You call Luke Nowacki. You keep you up to date and always a phone call away. Retirement accounts, annuity, college savings plan. Let Luke Nowak worry so you don't have to. Luke Nowacki, 248-663-4748. And Archangel Senior Management, are you an entrepreneur looking for a safe and socially responsible real estate investment? Consider contacting Archangel Senior Management. Senior living, one of the fastest growing markets in America. So how do we make sure this isn't a vomitous market? Archangel has an idea offering small communal living for senior citizens in homes right in their own neighborhoods. Healthy places, wonderful places,
clean,
welcoming places, clean places. Archangel has formed partnerships with the nursing school and Majestic Residences, which is a home-based assisted living franchise system. Smaller and all around the place. This partnership provides authentic caregivers, real nurses and caregivers, with the tools and training necessary to manage the care homes. And Archangel investors in that real estate deal can feel secure in both their investment and the care going on in your investment. It's genuine, the owners are local, and Archangel has Overwatch. If interested in this trailblazing opportunity, contact Archangel at 989-614-0416. And always remember, the Lions are going to the Super Bowl. And if you don't want to come downtown and have drunks vomit all over you and freeze your ass off, but you want the Detroit experience, right behind me, AmericanConeyIsland.com. Get a Coney kit delivered to your home. A dozen proprietary dogs, 8 quart of proprietary chili, steamer buns, an onion, and that saucy little hat they wear down here at Michigan and Lafayette. Right on the corner, AmericanConeyIsland.com. Get some Detroit in your Super Bowl party. Now, speaking of Detroit, we got Dr. Detroit here with us, Macomb County Prosecutor Pete Lucido. How you doing, Pete?
Happy to be here. Happy to be here, Charlie. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So let's get to some news real quick. Are you going to be U.S. Attorney? Are you running for Attorney General? What do you got? What's in the future for Pete?
You know what? Right now, I want to take it day by day because Macomb has a host of things going on in reference to trying to find a body right now. Unfortunately, that was the thought of anything crossing my mind other than accomplishing day by day and taking care of my family and my health is the only thing I want to talk about today. Moving forward about my political career and where that leads me, I think we have to have an inauguration first. I know that our U.S. Attorney, Dawn Eisen, has now resigned her position, and they're going to be looking for a replacement.
Well, Pete, you should throw your name in the hat. You should sidle up to the president and, say, I'm the man to clean up Dodge. And speaking of bodies, man, you look good, bro.
Thanks.
Yeah. What have you been eating? Your hair?
No, actually, I've been not watching my weight, but letting my weight take care of itself.
So listen, now you saw that was in your courthouse, just down the block from your office. That this deal with Dana Nessel and these signatures. What do you make of that? What the hell has taken so long to get this guy on trial? I mean, speedy justice is real justice.
And they say justice delayed is justice not served. And as a result, I mean, there's people out money. There is allegations in the case that are not founded yet until they've been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And if he's going to go to trial, what's holding up the trial? There's been no indication what's been holding up this trial in this case. But I want to look at this. If the first was taken advantage of when they had the signatures taken for their own process for putting something on the ballot, why wasn't that brought to light? Why wasn't that brought out that there was some possibly foul play? Because I don't know the situation. I wasn't one that paid for this. I wasn't a party to it. And maybe those individuals ought to come clean and say, if we would have gotten justice at that time, would we need to go ahead and worry about the allegations of fraud on the second, third, and fourth individuals that were taken for in the last election?
And it all could have been prevented. That's my point. That's the news here, which is, Nessel, she's the worst attorney general I've ever seen. And I covered Elliot Spitzer, okay? So a year before this guy allegedly defrauded a bunch of, including the front runner for the Republican nomination for governor, serious questions about, his ability when he's raising the signatures for the gay rights legislation, which is Nessel's lifelong work, and the co-chair is her wife. Yeah, certainly had to know 2 years earlier that something was going on with this, and we were never told anything. Could have taken this guy off the streets. I mean, at the very least, we need an acknowledgement.
Yeah, what was the motivation for not at that time charging? What was the motivation for not at least informing transparency of the public? It may have deterred Chief Craig or any of the other candidates that wanted to have that individual collect signatures from going forward.
Oh, I think we got an expert who put it succinctly. That's exactly right. Should Nessel recuse her, should her office recuse themselves from this case, considering the familial connection to this guy? One finger Freddy.
I don't know enough about the case itself except this. There's a causal connection between what was done when the signatures were being paid for in her spouse's case and the engagement then thereafter when they knew they were defrauded, apparently, based on the facts that I'm hearing. And now you have individuals who are defrauded again, apparently, based on the alleged allegations that were brought to the courthouse.
Yeah, and that guy, his finger smelled. You know what I mean?
Is this consumer fraud? Because politicians are also consumers of engaging in meaningful contracts for purposes of political endeavors. So is this consumer fraud?
Allegedly, I would think. I mean, Craig was the front runner. Things could look very different. I mean, there could be something more cynical involved here. That's a lot of Republicans want to think that. I don't think Nessel let him run around to blow up the Republicans, because there's no way for her to know that he had even been hired.
Yeah, but isn't the problem that the other option is just pure incompetence? I mean,
thank you.
That's really the other option.
Dum-da-dum-dum. Dum-da-dum-dum-dum.
All right, now
Dum-da-dum-dum.
let me move here to just some more dumb shit. I want to go to Oakland County now. The tragedy at Oxford High School is about 4 children who were murdered and another who's doing life in prison for killing them. It's about 11 devastated families having to find a way to go on. It's not supposed to be about political careers or election cycles. It's not supposed to be, but it is. It's become a distasteful and self-aggrandizing scene. Now, the latest, it appears the rush to the dim bulbs of broadcast TV has distracted Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald from following simple instructions from a judge. Even though the judge ordered both the prosecutor in the case of Ethan Crumbley and his parents and the defense to keep away from the press, the prosecutor couldn't resist. Now, it's a lawsuit, a filing by defense attorneys has been made public. McDonald contracted with 2 media handlers and paid them $100,000, which I would assume is public money.
Yeah.
Public money. $100,000. After all, someone has to document her awesomeness, the weightiness of her legal acumen. So ABC News and the Washington Post were granted behind-the-scenes access, interviews with prosecutors in their living rooms, and strategy sessions. A Netflix documentary and all-exclusive headlines followed. Unbelievable. McDonald's convictions are already in trouble after it came to light that she and her office withheld from defense lawyers deals that they made with school officials in exchange for their testimony. Now remember, I already excoriated them when they were just all jumping around on TV and you forgot all about the victims. Remember when McDonald announced her decision to arrest the parents of the school shooter, Ethan Crumbley. She did it on TV, and she didn't tell the sheriff she was going to do it. And the sheriff wasn't watching, but Crumbley's parents were watching, and a manhunt ensued. Pete, what do you make of it? I could ask you something focused about just right off the rip. What do you make of this?
Well, there's a definitional section in our ethics rules. Number one, we all carry bar cards, which means we're members of the State Bar of Michigan. Those are rules for people that are practicing law. There's a heightened or a elevated rules when you're the prosecutor. You're not allowed to comment. You're not allowed to criticize. You're not allowed to give anything but factual information. And you're not allowed to go ahead and make any disingenuous statements against the accused because it will possibly taint the case, which means prejudice the defendant or the accused at the time and before all evidence has been submitted. In addition, by making a statement to the press, you're held accountable under the standards as a prosecutor that if your job is to just see that justice is served, that's not serving anybody's interest except maybe your own if you're slanting that statement for the benefit of her. And that is all going to come to light because some court of appeals may be looking at this as part of the overall process in making a determination whether or not the Crumbleys got a fair trial, whether or not pretrial media and publicity. My understanding is, because I work with the media every day, I have a what's called a communications director that directs the communications to the media to be transparent, open, and honest, and we give factual information without giving an opinion as to how our feelings are. It doesn't matter how our feelings are. It matters that justice is served fairly, openly, transparently, and under the auspice of the law and the rules of professional responsibility that a prosecutor is held to.
Well, there was a gag order in this case, so I'm assuming just beyond the facts that are revealed in trial, that's all you're going to be able to say.
Apparently, this companies, 2 communication firms, were agents of the prosecutor's office. And does that agency also entail confidential information that is withheld within only the purview of the prosecutor and the law enforcement agencies? So let's be very clear how we say things, because if they're sitting in on discussions of trial strategies as well as witnesses that may have been given proffer agreements, because that's another issue that's been raised, whether the proffer agreements were disclosed to the other side.
Well, let me put that aside for a minute. I'll write a note here to get back to it because that's just another big one. Because let's remember what this means. It's a novel piece of jurisprudence where the parents are now held responsible for the murderous actions of their child. That's a big deal. That's never happened in the United States. And this whole thing, this whole scab is ripped off once again because somebody can't keep. What is wrong with everybody? You can't keep your nose out of the media. Okay? You can't keep your nose out of the media. You were told to stop it. Now, here's the argument. ABC, first, here's the thing about the media. ABC News, according to the defense lawyers' filings, ABC News and the Washington Post sign contracts. First of all, when you're the press, you don't sign no contract with people you cover. 2, the contract was, we'll keep it confidential until it's all said and done. And then 8 days later, we're on Netflix. We're ready to roll. So there's that part. So my question would be, how much of this bled through? You're sitting there in the strategy meetings for the prosecutor's living room. You work for a news organization and you're hearing stuff. So the guy from the Washington Post, you did the big take after it's done. Did this guy file any daily briefs? Did he write any articles during the trial? Is that a problem, Pete? Do these things have to be overturned, in your opinion, as a prosecutor?
Well, again, I don't have complete control over all the facts in the case. But what I am doing is reading. Hold on. What I am doing is reading what is being stated in the news media. But I'm also looking at what my role is as prosecutor. It is not to go out and have a media circus. And I understand that this was a national case where you had to manage the media. But I thought the money that was being spent was to manage media, not create media. That's the first thing. The second thing is giving facts and facts alone that are open and that the public can learn about without prejudicing this case that is going to be presented. And I'm sure the defense lawyers are going to look into what was stated in the media. Would that been something that was learned in a private, confidential meeting that should not have been disclosed at the time or before the trial? And lastly, the money that was spent was taxpayers, and you haven't even talked about that. If the taxpayers are fronting the bill, was it to get the information to the individuals? The individuals would be the public, or was it for some other motive purpose to get out something that the prosecutor wanted to do in relation to the case itself? And that's going to be challenged and looked at by the Court of Appeals.
Let me tell you how all this shit in Michigan came to be. Like the hypercharged, nobody can talk to Gretchen Whitman in the local meeting. All of a sudden she's on Meet the Press. Well, Mike Duggan's shit is his lies are getting put in the New York Times, right? Nobody's checking what they're putting out. How is that possible? It goes back to Whitmer gets elected. They send a guy from the Democratic National Committee, right? The media guru hitman. He shows these hayseed cowtown backwater politicians and their handlers how to get national coverage. Then all of a sudden, everybody's got a Rolodex. Everybody's tied into Washington, New York, and LA. And they start doing shit like this, right? It takes a little expertise and a little time to know what you're doing. I can't imagine. I would love access to the prosecutors, but I might know better. When I'm following a trial and the judge says absolutely not. Now let's go to the proffer here. This is the real legal shit. And again, I say this because my opinion, and I can do it. Rightly, this case should be overturned. Just there's so much Yeah, go on.
Before we get there, do we need a media czar as it relates to criminal cases now in the future to see if this was actual journalism to keep the public transparent and informed, or was it more of a slant to influence a jury? Remember that. That's critical now in this case. Do we need a media czar to make the determination that says this was all fluff, this was all for nonsense, instead of keeping them informed about just the facts that are going on in the case?
Now, we've been around a while, so we know a lot of the same heavy hitters here in the legal community, if I can call it community. Okay, the legal prison yard, lawyers. But I assume, I don't know if you did, but I'm talking to people that who have inside look at this, and I kept quiet about it, was the proffer agreement. the dude that kept telling me, he's like, look, man, you're going to get in real trouble with those proffer agreements. I said, what are you talking about? Right? So not having the physical proffer agreements, I stay out and I let the process work. But as it turns out, and I'm going to ask your legal opinion, a proffer agreement is the prosecution, U.S. Attorney and the FBI, they do it all the time. Here's a piece of paper, sign it, tell me the truth, and what you tell us will not be used against you. That's the proffer agreement. So you're a subject of this investigation. Tell me what you know, and I won't put your ass in prison. So apparently, McDonald and, the gang in her office are talking to school officials about what happened that day. And they signed proffer agreements. But the defense was never told. The jury wasn't told. There's something called the Brady rule. Pete, is that grounds for reversal? What is a proffer agreement, and is it grounds for a reversal?
Okay, got two questions, but the first question is Brady. Before we get anywhere, in Brady, there was withholding of certain evidence, critical evidence, that wasn't turned over to the other side. Let me make it very clear. Everything that the prosecutor gets, whether it is to implicate the individual or to exculpate the individual, which means to clear the individual, has to be turned over. The system was set up that everything that a prosecutor gets, whether it be video, audio, whether it be written, whether it be a body cam, digital, and there's a ton of digital evidence now that we're dealing with, anything, witness statements of anybody that's in the case or outside the case, has to be turned over. Whatever was learned by the police has to be turned over for it to be fundamentally fair and due process accorded to the accused. If you hold back proffer agreements, and you do that because you may not want to call those individuals, or you won't call those individuals in a case, that's not justice. You turn it over and let the defense do their job, because they may want to call those individuals to see what they know and ask them, were you given anything in advance of your testimony? And to me, quite frankly, that's information that was done as a result of the investigation of the case. It shall be turned over. That's my professional opinion as a prosecutor. All evidence that is incorporated with the case shall be shared with the defense, so that you have open, honest, and complete, the word is, information in presenting the case.
Remember, if you're a juror, okay, and the school is trying to dodge its culpability here, right? Its reaction to it. And you're a juror, and the defense walks up and says, did you sign an agreement to testify with the prosecutor? I did. Well, that's, any juror is going to weigh that in their deliberations, and they weren't given that.
That's something that is now going to be determined by the Court of Appeals, whether that was critical information and evidence that was incorporated in the investigation, which would include, we want to know everything, teacher or administrator or principal or whoever, and offer them the opportunity to come clean about any and all information that led or was included up to the shooting. And in return, we won't charge you. We won't, these are critical agreements that are offered by prosecutors to get to the truth. But it's also part of the justice system to turn it over so that we have fundamental fairness.
My God, the prosecution here is hiring media firms to shape this thing to the public, withholding critical information from the jury and the defense. I'm going to move. I heard land's cheap in L.A., and I can't sleep. I love you, L.A. I'm so sorry, but I'll have something. Detroit, I'm going to tell you how you're like L.A. next week. Let me get the receipts. Finally, Pete. Pete Hegseth was on Capitol Hill for his not confirmation. Yeah, would they be confirmation? Yeah. And our newbie United States Senator Elissa Slotkin. It's her first time to grandstand in the public eye. And this is what she asked Hegseth, the nominee for Secretary of Defense.
That no president has the right to use the uniformed military in a way that violates the U.S. Constitution and further taints the military as that apolitical institution that we all want, right? And our founders designed the system so that, we had posse comitatus, that we weren't going to use active duty military inside the United States and make American citizens potentially scared of their own military. We went through our own experience with that with the British. So Donald Trump asked for the active duty 82nd Airborne to be deployed during that same time. Secretary Esper has written that he convinced him against that decision. If Donald Trump asked you to use the 82nd Airborne in law enforcement roles in Washington, D.C., would you also convince him otherwise?
So let me make a point. You're a man of a certain age, Pete. Do you remember in 1967, the civil unrest and LBJ called in the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne, 5,000 of them fresh back from Vietnam? Do you remember that, Pete?
I was less than 10 years old.
In 1943, FDR sent in 6,000 U.S. servicemen to quell the civil unrest. And I'll go back to 1863, which was before the Posse Comitatus Act of 1870s, I believe, which was a Reconstruction problem, right? In 1863, Detroit had civil unrest. And the United States military occupied Detroit. So Detroit is the only United States city that was occupied 3 times by the United States Army, all of them during wartime, and all of them having to do with racial strife. I'm looking at a senator here that's supposed to represent us and doesn't know anything about us.
What do I make of it? Well, I'll tell you right now. First of all, they're going to go ahead and they're going to do, I call it an autopsy, on everyone that's been nominated. And I like his name, Pete, because it reminds me so much of me. But the defense
you guys look
secretary,
alike. Same hair product.
Yeah. But the defense, I like the product. It works for me. But the defense secretary,
if you feel
is
good,
a job that people are going to be scrutinizing any actions that the president takes. And, we have a checks and balance system. I mean, we have a trifecta, I call it, that the executive branch can only act most of the time, not all the time. There's times where the executive can act unilaterally with the assistance of the legislative branches, which the Senator Slotkin is in. So to ask the question about what the president can and cannot do, and whether or not the president should have that authority, reread some of those constitutional statements that are put in there by, like she said, our founders. It was to check and balance the executive branch so that we wouldn't have dictatorship. And there has to be somebody in charge who is going to mobilize troops, if you will, at a time when this country needs it most for its own protection. So yes. I understand we want to terrorize sometimes some of these nominees and do the autopsy. But let's be fair with the questions and let's be fair with the responses before we go ahead and jump to conclusions.
Well, yeah. Look, there's the Insurrection Act. During back to LA during the Rodney King riots, the Marines were called in. I mean, yep. know your shit. You're supposed to be the big kahuna, and you're dumb. So here's what the questions that need to be asked. Recruiting is down. Our readiness is down. I mean, our own joint committee says we are not prepared to fight a war with China or Russia. We got drones flying around and we don't know where the fuck they came from, apparently. But we're talking about the 82nd Airborne, drinking, your past wives, DEI. I mean,
it's almost like it's a TV show.
It's almost like it's the Oakland County Prosecutor's office.
Yeah. Easy, Charlie, Mark. Before we get off the tracks again, let's look at this. This is her first time, I think, in the Senate and a Senate hearing. However, she did spend some time in Congress. And if we know anything about our government, I know that there's aides as well as chiefs of staff that can give her the tools that are necessary to educate oneself. When I was in the state Senate, as well as the House here in Michigan, I had the best of the best to give me information to make me at least educated to come out with what I believe is fairness to get the question. I don't like unfair questions. I don't like yes or no on certain things because it doesn't give the individual a chance to actually fully explain where they're coming from. And as a result, that may prejudice their confirmation. And I don't think that that's fair. I really don't. Let them articulate what they need to say and how they want to say it.
Well, if she wants to position herself as a moderate, who's the guy from Pennsylvania?
From Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Fetterman.
Oh, yeah.
She wants to be the Fetterman of Michigan. I mean, I'm looking at her past actions.
Well, I gotta say, Pete, you're right. The yes or no questions are bullshit because it allows zero nuance on a hypothetical. It's like you can't answer that. It's not a fair question.
So I'm left with her record. You were silent about Afghanistan. You voted for the Inflation Act. I'm looking at all of it, and there's a reason she had to go on the listening tour, right? Because she never voted here till she moved back to run for Congress, right? We put it on the show. John McCain would not let her nomination as Assistant Secretary of Defense through, called her completely unqualified. You know who else he called completely unqualified?
Who?
Anthony Blinken.
Oh, there you go.
Right? And I think he's proven he's utterly incompetent. I just want to be ready. I want Detroit not to flood, L.A. not to burn, the border to be closed. This isn't any radical right-wing stuff. This is just regular people in a regular place wanting regular things. And I was shown talking points in grandstanding yesterday. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I got to do today because I'm getting real mad. Pete Lucido, Macomb County Prosecutor, maybe the next U.S. Attorney of the Eastern District of Michigan, maybe the next Attorney General. I don't know. We shall see. Keep fighting the fight, Pete. Thanks for being on.
Listen, guys, Mark, see you later and take care, Charlie.
Next week, we'll see y'all.